Here at Gold Hill, we're exploring the Old Testament book by book. For all the information and previous weeks, head to goldhill.org/GGP, which stands for God's Great Purpose. This week, on Sunday morning, we should be looking at the book of Judges. It's rather like a sequel to the book of Joshua, as both books talk about Joshua's death. But in Judges, we learn about the next part of the journey for the Israelites, as they finally are aiming to conquer the various tribes that are currently living there. It had become a normal pattern that at significant points in their journey, Joshua would organise for a pile of stones to be constructed. The point of it was that it helped the people to remember what God had done for them at that place. He does this one final time just before he dies. He's talking to the main leaders and elders, and he's reminding them again of how God has led and provided for them since they left Egypt. He obviously knew the next step wasn't going to be an easy one. There was a lot of land to take, and their track record wasn't brilliant. But the people replied with seeming determination and said they would keep their promises, that they would drive out the people, that they would do things God's way and listen to him. And so Joshua one last time puts a large stone under the oak tree as a reminder. But what we see in the early chapters of Judges is that their good intentions were not enough. They didn't do what they said they would do. Their independent attitude didn't do them any favours. And by the end of the book, the moral and spiritual decline in their nation is really obvious. There's a phrase that is repeated throughout the book, which is, "Then the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord." We read how they completely abandoned God and worshipped the gods of the surrounding nations. They didn't drive out the people of the land. They allowed themselves to become a pluralistic society, which was not God's desire for them. He'd wanted them to be a holy nation, being significantly different in their beliefs and behaviours. God was angry. But this isn't the end of the story, as at various points in the 300 plus years that this book covers, the people realise how foolish they are, and they cry out to God to help them. God's been waiting for them to come to their senses, and he's always ready to respond. He sends them the judges, or possibly a different title could be their deliverers. These men and one woman, Deborah, were God's anointed people. He used them to bring peace to the land and to go back to the living God's way. But we mustn't think they were perfect people, these judges. Many of them had some definite character flaws. The fact that God chose to anoint imperfect people, I reckon, is really encouraging, because I'm sure that you, like me, are often aware of your limitations, which may mean you don't think you're good enough or able enough to be used as God's workman or woman. Clearly, God doesn't see it that way. We have a great example in one of the judges, Gideon. There he is, the youngest son from a small tribe, which meant in his eyes he didn't have much status. Then an angel comes to him and tells him he's a mighty warrior. And that's not how Gideon saw himself at all. But there are 5 very important words before the phrase, "you mighty warrior," which are, "the Lord is with you." Gideon wasn't a warrior on his own. It was only with God that he could do what he was being asked to do. Maybe you see yourself in him, doubtful and lacking in trust. So how can you and I learn that God really is trustworthy? We'll explore this more on Sunday. We'll see how the judges are only a foreshadow of the perfect deliverer, Jesus. And that when we, like them, try to live independently of God, we often get our lives very messed up. But just like them, we can know that when we call out to God, he hears and responds. Maybe we need to remember to look back, to remind ourselves just how much God has done for us. So I hope you will join us on Sunday and be encouraged by being challenged by this book of Judges.